Good morning. I'm Sophie and I'm currently at Kechara Forest Retreat, Bentong, Malaysia. And today I'll be sharing on, is Buddhism a religion? It is not actually a religion in the sense that religion is commonly known as. It is actually a system that Buddhists takes responsibilities for themselves rather than be dependent on or worship a god, having a faith in an external god or supernatural being. Buddhism actually does not demand blind faith, of the practitioners, but instead Buddhists seek refuge in the Buddha because it was him who discovered the path out of sufferings. And let me go to the picture of a Buddha. There you go. So a Buddhist does not seek refuge in the Buddha with the hopes that the Buddha will accord us with enlightenment. In fact, Buddha never ever gave such a guarantee. It is not within the power of the Buddha to wash away the impurities or bad deeds or the bad karmas, of another. The Buddha is actually a teacher who taught the path, and we ourselves are directly responsible for our own purification. Although a Buddhist seeks refuge in the Buddha, he does not give up his freedom of will or thoughts. On the contrary, a Buddhist uses this free will and thoughts to thoroughly examine Buddha's teachings, understand, and then practice to eventually gain the same qualities as the Buddha himself. The starting point of Buddhism is reasoning or understanding. To those who seek the truth, Buddha has said, "Do not accept anything on mere hearsay, thinking that just because we have heard it for a long time." So an example would be that being vegetarian, you will not get enough nutrition or enough protein, which is actually entirely untrue. Scientists or nutritionists has discovered that actually being vegetarian, we get a lot of protein from the vegetables that we eat, such as peas, nuts, and anything that's legume in nature. And so as such, it debunks the myth of being vegetarian, you don't get enough nutrition. And Buddha has said that do not accept anything by mere tradition, which is thinking that, it's been passed through generations that it will be the truth. It actually, we should be questioning it before we actually accept it as the truth. Because, for example, that it's been passed down that happiness equates to having good family or good career or having wealth. And a lot of people in this world has found out that even though you do get married, but there is a lot of problems that comes with marriage, such as having to work and earn enough to take care of a family. And when the children comes, you have a lot of burden that you need to take care of. And sometimes the person that we get married to are not the person that we think that we wish to spend our life with. So there's a lot of problems that comes with it. And also having a good career, it is you have to keep climbing to the career ladder, to be successful. And even if you own a company, you have so much stress of keeping it alive, keeping it to every time think of the sales and how to improve, on the company. And having wealth, how much is enough because those wealthy people, they will keep continuing on to have that need of increasing and increasing, to have the better car, to have the bigger house, to have a better holiday, or to have, you know, all sorts of things that comes attached with wealth. And at the same time, you have the fear of losing it as well. So all this does not actually equate to happiness. And Buddha has said, do not accept anything on the account of mere rumors, such as believing what others say without investigation. So, for example, in this case, let's say maybe you see some, people has been saying that, oh, that person is very unfriendly or very standoffish. But after, maybe if you take the trouble to get to know the person better, or and talk to that person or something, it could be just that the person is very nice, but just very shy. So as such, from not speaking to others, the demeanor could be that it looks that he or she could be proud or stand for unfriendly. So in actual fact, she is actually very, very shy. And Buddha has said, do not accept anything just because it accords with your scriptures. Do not accept anything by mere presumptions. Do not accept anything by mere inference. Do not accept anything by merely considering the reasons, which in this sentence means that, you just lightly consider and did not really investigate in depth into it. And do not accept anything merely because it agrees with your preconceived notion, which means that it appeals to your thinking. And if you go deeper into Buddhism, you realize that due to our disposition in samsara, a lot of our times our thoughts are actually, we have some wrong thoughts, such as wrong views or expectations or perceptions. All these are quite tainted, and as such, if it agrees with us, then we should question it, because due to ignorance, it may not be correct. And then Buddha said, do not accept anything merely because it seems acceptable, which is thinking that if the speaker seems to be a good person, his words should be accepted. So maybe, you think that a person has high standing, let's say, just because that person has been successful in his life, that maybe he shares some thoughts on his religion, but it may not necessarily be the truth, because he may be successful in his business, but he may not be knowledgeable in the areas of religion. So you should do your investigation before you actually believe him or take his word to be the truth. And Buddha has said, do not accept anything thinking the ascetic is respected by us, therefore it is right to accept his words, which is also similar to the previous sentence, but in this case it really applies to a person of religious standing. And this is also quite true, because in some religion there had been a very high respected practitioner or preacher that had actually had behavior contrary to what they preach, and therefore it is very it would be wrong to accept what he has been preaching, because his actions are contrary, and as such he has not actually realized the lessons that he has received. So it is always good that we question, and also to, even if it's that person that you receive the teaching from, Buddha has, well, the Asvagosha has actually taught that we should question and we should investigate the person that we will take refuge in, that as in like accepting his words or relying on him, for guidance. So we should investigate that person until he is unquestionable, and then we should take full faith and practice according to what he teach. So Buddha has said that, I quoted this, but when you know for yourself these things are immoral, these things are blameworthy, these things are censored by the wise, these things when performed and undertaken conduce to ruin and sorrow, then indeed do you reject them. Here it says that you yourself actually would have an inclination to a sense that of where you will see something that is immoral, or something that is not right, that a lot of people who are wise, who has the wisdom, has rejected. Then and also when put into practice, that the results are negative, then you should reject them and not do not accept them. And Buddha continued, when you know for yourself these things are moral, these things are blameless, these things are praised by the wise, these things when performed and undertaken conduce to well-being and happiness, then do you live accordingly. So as such, from this statement, you can see that if you see that the end practice, when the results comes out to be positive, and it results in happiness for others and for yourself, and a lot of people with wisdom accepts this, that it is correct, then you should take it on as your practice. So these were the words of Buddha, which is still valid to this age, this day and age. So there is no blind faith involved, that we should conduct our investigation thoroughly before we accept. So Buddhists do not worship or pray to an image expecting worldly or spiritual favors, but actually we pay reverence, to what the statue represents, which is the Buddha with his enlightened qualities, that we wish to follow as an example, and to be able to gain enlightenment. And we use the statue as Buddha's, it's a representative of Buddha's noble example. So the external object of reverence, which is the statue, is actually not necessary, but it serves, a purpose, which is to allow the practitioner to focus his attention. Those with great visualization gift may be able to visualize the Buddha, but without the image, there are those who can't. So that is why it is very helpful to be there to help us with our visualization. Let me share with you another picture of the Buddha. And this was the Buddha who went through his practice, and where he lived on a grain of rice every day, until a young girl offered him rice pudding with milk, and at that point he realized that starving is actually not the way, and it should be a middle way where you do not overeat, where you become lazy, but you do not starve yourself, where your focus will be on hunger. So this is the statue that represents the practice of Buddha, where he understood the middle way was the way, the conducive way to practice. And so we pay respect to the Buddha in gratitude. The Buddha has actually never expected obeisance, but for his disciple to observe and practice his teachings. The Buddha has said, "He honors me best, who practices my teaching best. He who sees Dharma sees me." So in other words, the Buddha has said to practice what he has taught. Do not just revere him, but practice and put his teachings into practice to realize, so that we gain our own enlightenment. So, and another thing is, Buddhists cannot be saved by just prayers to the Buddha. Instead, our prayers are a form of reminder to ourselves of self-control, proper action and possibility of enlightenment. A Buddhist should not pray to be safe, but instead rely on ourselves to gain the freedom out of suffering. Meditation in Buddhism isn't a silent or blank mind. We are actually striving to understand the teachings and to actually actualize the teachings within ourselves. So unlike unlike other religions, where there is an almighty God to be obeyed and feared, who controls that whether you go to heaven or hell, and who is able to take away all your sins. In Buddhism, there is none. So as such, Buddha does not claim creation of existing, the indisputable truth, and he also does not condemn other religion. So this says that already pre-existing law of nature, and it's Buddha who just gained realization of it, so he is not a creator. And Buddhism recognizes the infinite dormant potential of a man and teaches that man can gain freedom from suffering through our own efforts. Therefore, Buddhism does not conform to any, I would say, entirely to a religion, because it's not a system of faith and worship based on an existing God, and that has the power, over the people's destination, and through obedience, service, or in honoring the God. So if a religion is a teaching, that takes on the view of life which is more than superficial, a teaching that looks into life and not merely at it, a teaching that gives men a guide of how to conduct himself, and also a teaching that gives us the way that we should face life and how we should treat others, and also how to face death with that serenity, and the system to get rid of the ills of life, which is like immorality, negative attitude or wrong thinking. Then Buddhism is a religion. So as such, Buddhism is not a religion, but it is actually a way of life. And I would say that you can actually incorporate it into other religion, and it will be, because it is just living. It's a way of life. It's it is not a religion. So as such, I would end the session today. But before I go, take a guess who the big Buddha is behind me. Where's my hand? Let's see. Yes, this. Take a guess who this statue is of, and I'll share it with you in the next session. Sorry, just knocked my computer. So I'll end this session now, and I would like to thank you for sharing your time with me. And I'll end it with completion dedication in Tibetan. Jang Jep Sen Cho Rinpoche, Mage Panam Ge Yushi, Ge Panam Pame Payang, Goning on the Bewashu, Tony Towa Rinpoche, Mage Panam Ge Yushi, Ge Panam Pame Payang, Goning on the Bewashu, Dasojini Sapagi Wadi, Dadandro Waguna Gampadan, Jepa Jesu Losantrapai, Tamping in Porindusa, Se Sho, Gewa Kuntu Yandala Madan, Drami Choki Pala Lonchoche, Sadam Langi Yaterazone, Doji Shangi Ngopangotus, Gewa Di, Yududa, Lama Sangyodrone, Droa Chika Malupa, De Salago Pasho. Joki Kapusungapa, Josunampa Pewala, Geki Samasiwada, Tunki Malu Sangwasho, Dadam Sangi Desunda, Drewa Songi Latene, Gewa Losantrapai, Tapayo River, Gyushi, Ni Modele Sendele, Ni Mingunyan Delesh, Missing Tato Delepel, Kunchusungi Jingilo, Kunchusungi Ngotruso, Kunchusungi Trasi, Sho, Jesunama, Kusen of Tingching, Nam Katrini Chochuke Pada, Losam Tempe, Dromi Sapsongi, Droe Munsa Taktuni, Gyushi, Gangwe Rawi Ko Wishin Kamden, Bendan Dewa Malu Goini, Channel Z 110 Get Soi, Shapishi de Badu Deng Gyushi. Home Tomping Otru Malupa, then the Dala Salduso, Konan Dempa Longchotna, Keba Sushi Shukten Cell. Thank you and hope that you join me for the next session.